to everyone, I'm Jia Min. Today I'm going to present for my final year project proposal. The first proposal is Therapeutic Landscape for Psychiatric Care at Seremban District. Now I'll briefly explain for the background of the problem. With an increase in the prevalence of mental health issues, there's a need for a therapeutic garden in a gradual increase. The term therapeutic landscape concepts were actually brought by health geographer Wilbert Gessler in 1992 to explore why certain environments seem to contribute to a healing sense of place. The statement of the problem is suicide remains a major public health problem for the world, and the suicide rate in Malaysia should increment over the period of time from 4.7 to 5.7 in the year of 2020, and it seems to gradually increase over the period of time. The aim is to study the landscape design and practices that may curb suicide as a resilient factors and critical to supporting the community mental health, whereas the objective is to study the therapeutic landscape design as a resilient factor in terms of community health and well-being, to study the potential exposure to greenness may associate with a better mental health. And the scope of study is the mental health and well-being and human activities, social values relating to the existing environment. I've studied the literature review for the built environment factor that leads to suicide attempt or thoughts, and the approaches are indicated to overcome the problem in the aspect of ecology, social, and economic, which I later come with 3 initial ideas for my design approaches. And here are the methodology that I used throughout my research. Next, I also found some theoretical framework in terms of biophilia hypothesis, stress reduction theory, attention restoration theory, and salutogenic environment. Here are 2 case studies that explain the concept of application of therapeutic landscape in terms of intensively inward-orientated and evocative landscape that engender emotional well-being and physical healing. The selected site is located at Taman Templer at Jalan Tun Ismail, and the neighborhood is about 6 minutes from the center of Seremban. The ownership of the community Taman Templer are under Majlis Bandar Seremban MBS, and the site coverage is about 10 hectares. The total amount of residents is approximately about 2,035 people, and up to 70% is residentials are Chinese, and 20% is Malay, and 10% is Indians. The site issues include the neighborhood are in a debilitated state and poorly maintained. The public facilities and amenities are in a poor condition. As for the site inventory, I have classified into Zone A, Commercial Hub, Zone B, Retreat Hub, Zone C, Residential Area, and Zone D, Shop Lots. And here are the site analysis in terms of site context, land use, rainfall, air pollutant index, temperature, wind speed, vegetation, and water bodies. As for the soil analysis shows the high accessibility and existing water bodies, but also lack of vegetation and poor visualization and activities conducted there. The opportunity for a site is vacant land that serves as local residents in terms of social and economic activities, where the vandalization is high, and also the traffic and lack of lighting might be the threat to the user. As for discussion, so I have divided the spaces into 3 functions such as economic hub, palace of place, and sanctuary retreat by referring to inventory analysis. So I wish to create a therapeutic landscape for the community in Seremban district with a healing sense and also the sense of place, not only bring the positive impact on mental health and well-being, but also enriches the role of value and environmental elements in the neighborhood. So in conclusion, by following principles and practices outlined in this guide, we ensures the local community in Seremban thrive to nature-infused environment and foster good health and well-being. And here are my references that I refer to. The next topic is Sustainable Landscape for Learning with Nature and Well-being in Preschool at Seremban District. The background of the problem is exploration of the application sustainable landscape of learning with nature among pre-educators. Learning with nature is a form of psychological therapy for all. Whereas the statement of the problem is, in Malaysia, studies of learning with nature remain a scar due to Malaysian education system focused on indoor learning rather than outdoor learning. So the aim is to study the sustainable planning practices to deliver a spillover benefit to the preschool community as defining element within the built environment, and the objectives are to examine the sustainability design in terms of learning with nature and well-being in preschool context, and to study about the potential applicability of sustainable landscape in local context. Whereas the scope of study is sustainability design in terms of outdoor learning and well-being, human activities, and sociable values relating to the existing environment. As for literature review are such as the factor that contributing and approaches in form of ecology, social, and economy that leads to sustainable landscape design. And here are the methodology that I used throughout the research. Whereas the case studies show the natural play environment that designed from the children perspective and play habits and with the nature elements. The selected site is located at Taman Templer between Jalan Han Hui Fong, which is a neighborhood that's 6 minutes from the center of Seremban, and the ownership of the community of Taman Templer are under Majlis Bandar Seremban MBS, and a site coverage about 10 hectares. The ratio of residents are 75% Chinese, 15% Malay, and 10% Indians. As for site issues are limited opportunities to interact with nature surrounding them, and also not many studies have been done on outdoor learning in Malaysia. Here are the site inventory which I have divided into Zone A institutional area and Zone B residential area. The site analysis are such that the site contacts land use, rainfall, air pollutant index, temperature, wind speed, and vegetation. As for SWOT analysis show a high density and diversity of neighborhood residents, but it have lack of vegetation and biodiversity and poor visual aesthetic. The opportunity for the site are vacant land for reuse or redevelopment in neighborhood where the vandalism and high rate of traffic might be the threat to the user. As for discussion are divided in terms of ecology, social, and economic in order to design a successful sustainable landscape for the user, and here are the listed activities and function of spaces. As for the conclusion, it not only enriches the educational experience but also instills the value of environmental stewardship from a young age through this sustainable landscape design. And here are the reference lists that I used throughout my research. That's all from me. Thank you.